Everyone. It's great to see your faces and names here on our screen this afternoon. My name is Janice Weis, and I am the Associate Dean and Director of the Environmental Law program at Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland, Oregon. Joining us today for this information webinar also is Tess Jacobson. She is the Assistant Director of the Environmental Law program. And together, the two of us would love to give you some general information about the application process for both our Masters of Studies of Law and our LLM degrees. We'll get into the details of those in just a bit. Um, and here's pictures of all three of our staff here at Lewis and Clark Law School in the environmental program. Obviously, me and Tess. It's worth also noting that our program coordinator, Delia Weedman, is also a fantastic resource for any of you with questions. So we want to start by saying welcome. We're glad you're interested in the program. We know many of you are here live with us right now, and many others will be listening to this recording. And because each of you has a different journey and a different story and different backgrounds, do not hesitate to reach out to Tess or to me or to Delia with questions really specific to your path and your interests. So I wanted to be sure we started with that. So for those of you who don't know a whole lot about our two online degree programs, I'll give you a little bit of information about our approach. So we are highly ranked for our environmental law program, and we were the first law school in the country to start doing environmental law as it became a thing starting back in 1970 when environmental laws were just being created. So quite exciting to have been at the forefront of this incredible movement that has lasted all of these decades. So it's a great opportunity to learn environmental, natural resources, and energy law because we have a lot of experience and a lot of depth of knowledge. But more importantly, and probably most relevant to your interests, we also have the ability to offer the same classes that we offer in person in this online format. So for those of you who can't come to Portland full time, you've got family or work or other obligations, this program is an excellent option for those of you who want quality environmental law education, but who need to do that from wherever you happen to be. So these are the perfect programs for busy professionals, anyone with any kind of, other obligations that doesn't allow them to come to Portland. I should say, we also offer these programs in person on our campus. So if you do want to come to Portland and be with us here in Portland, you are more than welcome to take that option. And some of our students do both. They may spend a semester with us here in Portland, do the rest of the program online. All sorts of options are possible. Just a little bit about the two degrees, and we'll talk more in a little bit about the requirements for them. But I'm sure, as most of you know, the LLM is for students who already have their law degree, whether that's a JD from a US school or an LLB or its equivalent from an international school. And again, it's for those who maybe recently graduated from law school, feel like maybe they didn't get enough environmental law as a JD, or it's an interest that came later and you now want to more fully embrace that particular area. Or it's for people who've been doing other kinds of law practice for many years and want to pivot into this area, or for lawyers who've been doing environmental law but really want to enhance their education and the depth of knowledge in certain areas. So that's the LLM. It's the degree for post-JD, post-law degree in international countries. The Master of Studies of Law is for students who don't necessarily want to be a lawyer. They don't want to practice law. Um, they are looking for knowledge of environmental law and policy to enhance their professional development. And they know that exposure to the laws, the court system, the regulations would be very helpful to them, again, either in a current career or for folks looking for more of a career pivot. And so both of those degrees are offered fully online and fully in person. Next slide, Tess. So we've mentioned already that our approach is to make the online program interactive and flexible at the same time. And I'll explain what I mean about this. Many of you may have already experienced online education in some form. It's obviously growing by leaps and bounds. Lots of different online programs exist. So some of you may have great familiarity with remote learning or online learning. Our approach is that our classes are what we call asynchronous, meaning you do not have to commit to being on Zoom or in a Zoom classroom at a particular time or day. The lectures are pre-recorded and they're really quality lecture videos. We don't just stick a camera in one of our in-person classes. These are well done, very high quality videos. You listen to the videos for the classes on your own time. So whether that's weekends, evenings, morning, whatever your time is that you're going to allow for pursuing the degree, you have that flexibility. It's within a certain time period that you would listen to the lectures, but within that time period, it's up to you to decide when you can do it. One of the things that I really like about the videos is you can pause the professor. You can stop the video and say, oh, I need to go back. I didn't quite catch that. Can't really do that in an in-person class. You can ask a clarifying question, but the convenience for learning and the outcome and the way that our brains work, it's really nice to be able to pause, catch up on your notes, maybe go back a little bit, repeat lectures if you need to. So we're finding that pedagogically, these classes work really well for grasping, really complex information. The other thing that makes these programs flexible is you can choose to take one class or multiple classes in any given semester. So if you already have a very busy schedule, it might be that you're going to take one class a semester. Maybe in a less busy time, you'll take 2 or 3 classes in a semester. So another nice piece of flexibility is you're leading that charge. There's opportunity for you to pick what level of commitment and coursework you want to do in any given semester. We work with a very talented vendor, Carolina Academic Press, known as CAP. They provide 24/7 technical support. They help our students figure out the online learning platform we use, which is Canvas. Many of you may have had experience with Canvas. It's a pretty intuitive, accessible learning management system. The other thing that really is important to note is there's opportunity for interaction with your professors and with your fellow students. So you're not just watching videos and feeling all alone out there in cyberspace with nobody to really bounce the ideas off like you would in an in-person class. So the unique thing about our system is we provide lots of opportunities for interaction. So after every video lecture module that would also include readings, the professor will post a discussion question. something provocative or a way to make sure you're understanding the material. You post your response, then you get to see your classmates' responses and then interact with your classmates. Obviously not in real time. Everybody's all over the world. But it's a nice way to give thoughtful feedback and get thoughtful feedback on your particular discussion post. And then the professor will weigh in and say, everybody got the point, everybody's looking good. Don't forget XYZ issue, as you're progressing. Most, if not all of our professors always have virtual office hours, so that you can talk to them live on a Zoom meeting, ask them questions. Many of the professors will have regular Zoom sessions. You can just drop into those and ask questions. Similarly, many of them have review sessions as you're getting closer to the exam. So lots of ways to interact with the material that we have found really fit different time zones and different obligations that you might have. Next slide, Tess. Great. I think you're doing the application requirements, Tess, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Janice. And hello, nice to see everyone and meet you all. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we look for in future students, and then I'll go through step by step each part of the application so that you have a better understanding of what to include and what we look for. So the first one I'll cover is our LLM students, our Masters of Law students. As Janice mentioned, these are students who are or about to graduate from an accredited U.S. or international law school. That would be a JD program if you're in the U.S. or an LLB or its equivalent if you're international. What we look for in the application and through the specific materials that we request, we're going to look for a demonstration of an excellent academic record. So we're going to ask for your transcripts. We're going to be looking at those and doing a deep dive into those. We're going to look for strong legal research and writing skills. This could be through work that you've done, through your current employment, or through your academics as well. And then the biggest thing is we're going to look for that genuine interest in environmental, natural resources, and energy law. This is a very specific program related to these particular topics. So while you have opportunities to take maybe 1 or 2 classes outside of the program, it really is focused strictly in the environmental law field. So we're going to be looking for that genuine interest, whether that's through how you plan to use the degree, past work, volunteer work. There's lots of ways to express that, and that can be expressed through your resume, your personal statement. Again, I'll go into those details a little bit later. An important note is we don't actually require, or you don't have to be barred in order to apply for the program or be accepted to complete the program. So while many of our students are barred, that isn't a requirement to join in the program. And then for our MSL students, what we're going to be looking for is a graduate from an accredited U.S. or international college or university. This is going to be your bachelor's degree. So this, could be a bachelor's of science, bachelor's of art. We have students who come in from all different walks of life, all different interest areas, a wide variety of backgrounds, including the degrees that they've received. So we have some scientists, we have journalists, we have artists. There's really no particular degree that we're looking for with this. And again, with that, we're going to ask that you demonstrate an excellent academic record. These are law school classes that you're taking. They're rigorous. So we're going to be looking for success in a graduate school classroom. And then strong analytical and writing skills. Again, this could be mainly through the writing sample that you're going to be submitting as an MSL student. It can be through your work experience, through your undergrad skills as well. And also that genuine interest in environmental, natural resources, and energy law. Same thing, we're going to be looking for how you plan to use the degree or hope to use the degree, or what you're hoping to learn in the degree as well. So now I'm going to go through step by step the different parts of the application. Most of this is for both, whether you're an LLM or an MSL. I'll call out particular points if there's differences between them. So the first one you're going to do is called the online application form. This form, you're going to register for an account, create an account with CAP, and then you will fill out the form, which just asks for basic information, demographic information, name, address, things like that. And then through this application form, you're going to submit your documents as well. You don't have to do it all at once. You're welcome to come back to it. You can save it, come back to it, start it over. There's definitely take your time with it. The online application form was available on our website, and I'm happy to send that link to anybody. I'll include it in the chat a little bit later as well. The next thing is that statement of interest. So the statement of interest is usually about 500 words, maybe a page. It doesn't have to be super long or anything like that. You actually shouldn't make it very long. It should be a little bit, about 500 words, one page, so that you're able to keep our attention, or the admissions committee, you're able to keep their attention, short and sweet, but still having enough information there that we can kind of get to know you a little bit. This is the one part of the application where we're not looking at, a GPA, we're not looking at your courses, we're not looking at, your job experience. This is really your chance to tell us a little bit about yourself that maybe isn't represented in other parts of the application. And importantly, this is the part where you're going to be really expressing to us that interest in environmental, natural resources, and energy law, and some of the future goals that you plan to use the degree for. And this is also one of those spots where you can really highlight your writing skills. So, double proofread it. I always recommend that you send this to two other people, one person who knows you really well and one person who doesn't know you that well. The person who knows you really well will be able to tell you if you're missing something that you think would help you stand out. They'll be a really good resource to help proofread it. And maybe someone who doesn't know you or doesn't know your background so well, that's going to be like the admissions committee that's looking at this statement. They're going to be able to be like, this wasn't super clear in this area, you kind of made this leap, but I didn't really see the connection. You could explain this a little bit better. Those are really good people to send those to before you send that to us. And then you want to send us a really nice, polished, well-written, no grammatical mistakes statement of interest. The third piece is going to be your resume. There's no really special resume format that we're looking for or anything like that. Any of the typical resume formats that you might get off of Google or Word or something would be totally sufficient. As long as it highlights your work experience. It can also highlight volunteer experience. So we have many people in the program who have maybe been stay-at-home parents, or maybe haven't had a job for a few years, but they have really great volunteer experience, or they have they've worked in their kids' schools, things like that. That's really great to see and highlight your academic and educational experience as well. So any of that, again, there's nothing particular or specifically that we're looking for in the resume. I get a lot of questions about, do I need a legal background or a legal job, or, is that important? It's not so much important. I mean, that's always great to have, just because then we know, that you're interested in the law, but it's not something that we're looking for in the resume. This is, again, just an area where we can get to know you, get to know your interests a little bit. My favorite part of the resume is the hobbies section, because I love learning about people's hobbies, what they're doing, what their interests are outside of maybe what their work experience or education has been in. Then we're going to request your transcripts. And these are unofficial transcripts for the purposes of the application. So you don't have to pay for official transcripts in order to submit them with the application. You can just take a screenshot, or if you have a PDF of your unofficial transcripts, that is totally sufficient. For the LLM program, we only need your JD or your LLB transcripts. We do not need your undergrad transcripts or any other graduate degrees that you might have or anything. Just your JD or your LLB is what we're looking for. For the MSL, we'll need your bachelor's degree transcripts. And this is typically the transcripts from your degree granting institution. So if you took community college or something in high school and those credits are shown on your um, degree granting institution, that's totally fine. Just those transcripts are sufficient. And again, we're not looking for anything in particular. Like I said, we get people from all different backgrounds in this program, so we're not looking for particular classes or anything like that. We take a deep dive into the transcript, so we're looking at the grades that you got. We're looking at maybe we can see like if you had a rough semester one semester, but then your GPA, got better, or what, there was a upward trend in the GPA. That's always great to see. So even if your GPA is a little bit lower, that's totally fine. It's also something you can express through either a GPA addendum or sometimes in the statement of interest. You're welcome to submit, there's a spot on the application form where you can submit additional materials. So, if you want to explain something a little bit further to us about your GPA or your undergrad, that's great. Always great to see. Again, it's kind of like sending us a complete picture that we're able to get to know you a little bit. And then the 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. So we require 2 letters of recommendation, but we allow up to 3. And one of the biggest questions I get with this is who should I ask for recommendations from? And it kind of depends on where you're at in life. So if you are a recent graduate, or maybe you still have really good connections with somebody from a law school professor or somebody from your undergrad, it's always great to see an academic letter of reference in there. Again, it's not something that's required or anything, but it does show, like having that shows us that you have been successful in a classroom environment, that you've been successful, in a law school or an undergrad environment. So it's always great to see that. But, we have people who graduated 10, 15, 20 years ago, and, maybe they don't have those connections anymore, or, that would be extremely outdated. Work resumes or work recommendations are great. So if you have a supervisor, that's great. I think one of the great things about the online program is you can ask your supervisor for a letter of recommendation and be like, I'm not quitting. This is an online program. So I'm not going to be going away for school or anything like that. I'm going to keep working here. So it's really easy, I think, and great to get that work letter of recommendation from a supervisor or a volunteer, someone you volunteered with, somebody who oversaw your work. Again, if you aren't currently employed or anything, it's great to get it from a past supervisor as well, or a past coworker. That's always great to see. One thing I always recommend that people avoid is family and friends. We know that they're going to write you great letters of recommendation, but we really want to see somebody who's worked with you in a who can speak to your ability to succeed in the program, whether that's through the work that they've seen you complete or through an academic setting as well. So yeah, that's it for the letters of rec. And then for the MSL applicants, I mentioned this before, we do look for a writing sample. We don't require it for domestic LLMs, but we do require it for international LLMs as well. And again, this just speaks to your, there's a lot of writing in law school classes, some of them. Your final exams are going to be like a mini paper in and of themselves oftentimes. So we're really looking for that strong writing skills. The writing sample does not have to be environmental in nature. So you're welcome to submit it on, most of the time, honestly, it's an undergrad paper that people wrote, or maybe if they have written an article or something like that as well. Those are always great to see. If you're welcome to use a work product as well, as long as, it's redacted and there's nothing confidential in there. So we have a wide variety of those, but it's just 5 to 7 pages, and something that shows off your writing skills and your research and analytical skills is great. And again, that will be required for MSL and international LLMs. For international students in either program, we do require a proof of English proficiency. This is usually through a TOEFL or an IELTS score. There's other ways though too. So if you have received education that has been primarily taught in English, that is usually something that we will accept instead of one of these scores, or you're also welcome to set up a meeting with me, and I'm happy to walk you through other ways that we might be able to prove your English proficiency. If you don't have a score high enough for the IELTS, we require a score of 100, and for the TOEFL, it's 8. So I might have gotten those two switched around. But yeah, always happy to meet with any students as well and kind of go over the specifics around the English proficiency requirement. Because all of our classes are taught in English, because it's a high level of reading comprehension and writing skills. So we're really going to be looking at those specifically. And I'm happy to answer any questions as well. You're welcome to drop them in the chat now if you want, but we'll have time at the end for a Q&A as well if you have any specific questions about your application. Or if you want to meet one-on-one, I'm happy to offer more personalized, Janice and myself, more personalized recommendations if you're not comfortable sharing it on a meeting like this. A little bit about our application timeline. So our priority applications for a January 2026 start are due October 1st. Importantly, with the priority applications, this gives you prime consideration for scholarships. So if I will talk a little bit more about scholarships in the next slide as well. So if you have October 1st is the best time to apply for the online program. But we do accept applications on a rolling basis, so we might accept them after October 1st too. It also kind of just depends on, how many people are in the program at that point or admitted. Decisions are usually sent out within 2 to 3 weeks after receiving your completed application. So what I always recommend, because this October 1st deadline is approaching fast, the first step I recommend is reaching out to your recommenders if you haven't yet and asking them to start writing those letters of recommendation, maybe sending them an updated resume if you need to. The biggest thing is because that's not on, you can't control when your recommenders are going to send you the letter or not. So giving them as much time as possible is always the best. And then kind of working through the remaining parts of the application, because most of that you can do on your own time and do it in your own timeline. So you're not waiting on someone else for that. If you are planning to apply for federal financial aid, you can submit the FAFSA form as soon as possible. You do not have to be admitted to the program in order to submit that. Importantly, you just have to put Lewis and Clark school code when you do that. And then when you are admitted to the program, our financial aid office will see that you've applied and they'll be able to pull that and offer you a financial aid package based on that. So that's another thing, fill it out as soon as possible, then you can get your financial aid information. FAFSA is also, it changed a few years ago where you're actually not submitting the most recent tax statement, you're submitting 2 tax statements ago. So I know some people are like, I can't fill out the FAFSA because I haven't filled out my taxes for 2024 yet. It's actually going to be like 2023 taxes that they're looking at. So you can fill it out now as long as you submitted the taxes from 2 years ago. And then if things have changed or anything, you can always ask for a addendum or ask them to consider you based on your current finances. Classes start January 7th. It is a quick start to the classes, especially because we're closed during winter break. So we're closed from the week of Christmas through New Year's, so that we really like to try to get our students set up in their online classes and everything prior to us leaving for winter break and ask any questions or anything. However, if that timeline feels a little bit tight to you, you're not quite sure, we do offer later start dates as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later too on what other start dates we offer in the program. And I also wanted to mention scholarships. So that October 1st deadline, that's priority consideration for scholarships. So that'll give you the best chance of getting the highest scholarship. We offer scholarships up to 25% of tuition. And the way that we offer scholarships in these online programs is as a tuition discount. So essentially, like our current online rate is a set rate of 1,696 per credit, you're going to receive a percentage off of that. And that's going to follow you through the life of the program. So if you take 2 years or 3 years to complete the program, you'll keep getting that percentage discount. And if something changes during your program, like you start the 3 years is a long time for some people. So, if a career change happened or maybe you got laid off your job or something, we do allow tuition reconsideration throughout your time in the program as well. So I always like to mention that because, life happens and it doesn't just, continue normally even during your time in the program. These scholarship awards are available for both MSL and LLM students, and they're based on merit and need. So there's a form that we'll send out once someone requests information or they request a tuition award. We'll send them a form to complete, which basically just asks for some merit and need information. So awards that you won, what's your debt and income, things like that. And then we'll base it off of, or the scholarship committee will base it off of that. And again, those are unconditional, so you don't have to maintain a certain GPA or anything in order to keep that tuition award throughout the program. As long as you're in good academic standing and still taking classes, you'll receive that discount. And then I'm going to pass it back to Janice to talk a little bit about the programs themselves, go into some more details.
Great, thanks, Tess. And as Tess said, if you've got questions, go ahead and put them in the chat if you don't want to forget them, or we will have time at the end, of course, for any questions. So just a quick overview of some of the details of our program requirements, and we'll start with the LLM. And again, this is the degree for those who already have a law degree, but really want to specialize and focus on environmental, energy, natural resources law. So US LLM students complete 26 credit hours to get the LLM. To give you a sense of what that means, most of our online classes are 3 credits each. And then we also have a class that I teach called Emerging Topics, which I'll mention in just a minute, which is 2 credits. We've got a couple of other classes that are 2 credits in the summer and a legal research class. So that gives you a sense. Most are 3, and again, we've got some that are 2 and some that are 1. Give you a sense of what we mean by 26 credit hours. Required classes are administrative law and environmental law, unless you took those as a JD. Then you do not have to repeat them. You're already done with those prerequisites. You can jump right into other classes. If it's been a while since you took those classes as a law student and you'd really love a refresher, you are more than welcome to take them again. You just don't have to if you feel like you took those, fairly recently. And then 2 semesters are required of the Emerging Topics class. That's just a really fun class that MSLs are also welcome to take. It really helps us become conversant in hot topics that are happening in the environmental world as we're studying it. So it involves, what did the Supreme Court's decision mean yesterday that happened on environmental issues? What do we mean there's no more agency deference? There's a lot going on in the administrative environmental law world these days. So it is not hard to find fun and topical issues in the Emerging Topics class. As part of that class, you write a short blog, which we publish on our website. The blog can be on any topic that you want. And it's turned out to be a great resource for our students. They can direct employers or friends and family or colleagues to their blog, and it's a really concise, succinct summary of a hot topic. For international students, they complete 2 extra credits because we offer a preparation course that Tess teaches to prepare students not familiar with the US law school system, prepares them for study in a US law school, and provides an overview of some key concepts that are useful for environmental law study. And that's the Introduction to US course that you see there. And they also, international students are required to take environmental law, and again, the emerging topics class. We don't require international students to take administrative law because administrative law is such a looming presence in the US and not necessarily so much in other countries. It's a class that's not required for international students. It is certainly recommended. It's the bedrock of US environmental law. We think international students get quite a lot out of administrative law. But again, depending on what country you might be returning to, may or may not be as relevant. And then at least 18 of the total credits must be in environmental law. Usually it's 100% of classes are in environmental law. So that's not usually an issue, but every now and then a student may want to take, if there's room, we have an online animal law program as well. So one of our environmental students might want to take an animal law online course. Likewise, animal law students sometimes want to take our classes. If you're going to do any kind of mix and match coming in person to Portland and you want to take a non-environmental class, you can certainly do that. But all of our online classes are environmental, so that's not an issue. So that's quick overview of the LLM requirements, and we'll talk about the classes that we offer in just a bit. And then for our Master of Study of Laws program requirements, similar with a few minor tweaks. So 26 credit hours, just like the US LLM. We also offer the same introduction course I mentioned for international LLMs for our MSL students, again, to prepare you to study in a law school setting and to get you at least an overview of environmental law concepts. MSLs take administrative law and environmental law, and again, same situation with international students with administrative law. You can choose to take it, don't have to. And again, 18 of 26 credits, just like the LLM. So we're mentioning the number of credits and the required classes. Obviously, you have a lot of room then to fill up the remainder of those credits with really cool classes. And we'll talk about that list just a bit later. In fact, now, we'll talk about it now. So our spring courses, Tess, I think you're going to go over the courses, right? So I'll
Sure.
turn it over to you. Great.
Yeah, happy to. So our spring 2026 courses, if you're ready and excited, planning to apply and start right in January, these are the courses that we're going to be offering in this spring. The intro course isn't on here, but it's definitely something that we offer. It just is dependent on how many new students are starting in the program at that time. Otherwise, it's definitely offered every fall. So we have water law, which is taught by one of our amazing professors, Karen Russell. And that class really is going to focus on some of the groundwater rights. It focuses on federal water law, and it's a course that is typically offered every year. So some of our courses are offered every other year. Some of them are offered every year. That's really because most students take about 2 years to complete the program. So we kind of have a rotation of classes throughout those 2 years to fit into different interest areas. But we find that water law is definitely an area that a lot of people are interested, especially now as things like data centers. It's very on the top of a lot of people's minds right now, water usages, water rights. Another really great class, wildlife law, which is taught by Professor Dan Rolfe. Another fabulous class. And this class, it's going to focus on things like the ESA, things like biodiversity, things like that. And it's a really great class for those interested in forest services, interested in biodiversity, interested in endangered species. And Professor Rolfe is a wonderful professor, really engaging in the online program. And he's also the professor who teaches the in-person courses too. So that's something I always like to highlight, is that our online professors are the same professors who teach our in-person courses. So they're really experts in their fields. A new class that we're offering this year, which we're really excited about, which is going to be taught by Professor Nick Fromhurst, who teaches our administrative law class during the summer, is environmental impact assessments. So this will be an environmental decision-making course that talks about mostly in the US, but there is going to be a comparative view for how international or foreign country or other countries do things like EIAs as well. And I always like to highlight, the new classes, especially just because we're constantly, this is a direct, this class was added because of what students have told us that they're interested in, what they want to learn more about. So we're always open to what our current students are looking for, what their interests are, and we're open to adding classes that fit within those interest areas. Another new one that we're adding in fall 2026 will be about land use planning. And again, that's directly related to current students saying that this is something that we want out of the program and out of the education. So we're constantly looking for new classes, improving our courses as well. Even though the lectures are pre-recorded, the faculty are looking at them every single semester. They're reviewing them, they're updating them as the law changes. So it's always new, relevant information. And then emerging topics, which Janice mentioned, that class is taught every fall and spring semester, 1 credit each semester, and you're welcome to take it up to usually twice is what most students take that class for to satisfy the two credits. I will post in the chat too our online course schedule for so you can kind of get an example of the general rotation of classes. We offer environmental law every fall online, so that one will be taught every single fall because it's a required course. Administrative law is offered every summer online, so I always want to make sure to highlight that because that'll be if you need to take administrative law, that will be at least one class where you'll need to take a summer class to satisfy that. Most students go year round with the courses, but some students want to just stick to fall or spring semesters, but that admin law is only offered online during the summer. So just plan one summer during your program, you'll be taking the class. And then I mentioned that we would talk about other admissions, other dates that you're able to start. So we accept admission applications on a rolling basis. So you can apply for spring 2026, which would be a January start date. We also offer start dates in May and August as well. So May would be a summer start date, and then August would be the fall start date. So we do run on semester programs. Our semesters are 13 weeks. So for example, the current semester right now, we're in fall semester that ran from the last week of August. Well, really the middle of August if you're taking the intro course, because that starts a little bit earlier than your other classes. And then it runs until the second week of December. And then the spring semester will run January through the beginning of May, usually. End of April, beginning of May, depending on finals. Like I said, we offer one-on-one counseling as well, so feel free to reach out at any point. Always happy to chat with everybody, see which timing would be right for you, right for your work. You're also able to take a leave of absence, so we do have that. We recognize the online program. People come, things come up in life. So, we have some students who work in the legislators, so they'll take off the spring semester when the legislator is in session and they can't really fit their classes in, and they'll plan to take classes during the summer and the fall to make up those requirements. And I think
yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just was going to add a couple things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's it I have. Janice, anything to add?
Great. Just a couple things to add, and then I see we have at least one question in the chat, and then we can also toss out what are frequently asked questions that may be simmering in your minds. Tess will put the curriculum link in the chat as she mentioned. But just as you're kind of thinking about, are there courses that are of interest to me? In addition to the courses that Tess mentioned, we also offer ocean and coastal law, international environmental law, natural resources law, and science. And that's kind of a cool class that talks about how science and law make decisions differently, as you may have experienced in your own backgrounds. How do we bring them together? Which informs which? Really, really a great class for future environmental folks of any kind. And then in the summer, in addition to the administrative law course that Tess mentioned, we also offer at least one course on Zoom. That time may not work for you if you're in a different time zone, or your work schedule doesn't permit it. But a lot of our online students really appreciate the opportunity to take a Zoom class. It's usually a shorter version. It just sort of breaks up the model of the asynchronous videos, and you're live in a Zoom classroom with the professor. So last summer we offered sort of hot issues in climate change and related energy issues. So there's always something on Zoom that we try to offer as well. So it's what I would say is a pretty nicely curated list of classes that cover energy and natural resources and environmental. To the extent that in any given semester, there's not a class that grabs you, or you've taken the classes, if you're an LLM as a JD, we also offer the opportunity to do what we call an individual research project. So that's basically writing a research paper on an environmental, natural resources, or energy topic of your choice. Tess and I then pair you with one of our faculty to work one-on-one on that paper. That's a nice option if you need to take a break from classes in any given semester and you just need to work on your own time. That would be a paper. Or you're looking to maybe publish a paper as part of your advanced degree pursuit. Always a great thing. Or you just want to learn about a particular topic. And often there's no better way of doing that than taking a deep dive into it, doing the research, and writing about it. So we offer that as really a nice way to make sure students are addressing all of their interests that are, bringing them to the program. So again, Tess put the link to our curriculum in the chat. And we're also hoping to add a land use class. Timing of that is a little unclear right now, but probably for any of you who'd be starting the program in spring or later, you'll get to see that coming down the pike. So we have a couple questions in the chat. And again, I'll kind of toss out some other questions. One of our questions was about the time commitment. Really, really good question. Specifically, how many hours per week should we plan to dedicate to each class? So our general rule of thumb is for a 3-credit class, 9 to 11 hours a week. General rule of thumb. That would include listening to the video lectures, doing the reading, and responding to the discussion post or quiz. It can depend on what the sort of interactive piece is. I would say that also varies depending on whether you're an LLM. LLMs already went to law school, so you're pretty good at diving back into reading law and case books and all that stuff. For MSLs, particularly the first couple of classes, the reading can be slow. It's a new way of reading. If you haven't read cases or a case book or law, you're reading a lot of judicial opinions. So it can feel slow when you're starting. So that number may be higher when you start. We have found, though, that the more you go through it, the more facile and competent you get at doing the reading. So as you advance through the program, you're not spending, as much time. You're more confident. You're more confident in what you're getting out of the reading. If it's a less than 3-credit class, then, I would scale that back a little bit more. We've been doing the LLM online since 2019 and the MSL online since 2020. And we've learned a lot of tips from our students, and as we faculty go through this program, that if anyone ever feels like they're spending an inordinate amount of time, we've got some tips and some ways to help you be as efficient as possible. So, we offer that because, again, you're doing this program because you have other things in your life, and it will be a lot. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It will be a lot of work, but it should be manageable. And so we've got some tips and tricks for how to, um, you know, be as efficient as possible that we're happy to share. Um, does anyone have questions? If they want to unmute, feel free to wave at us and do that, or again, type it in the chat. And if not, we're happy to do some of our frequent. Okay, so Tess, you answered that question. Yeah, Allison.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this. My big question is, you mentioned that the lectures for the online learning are pre-recorded. So I'm wondering how the professors who put that course content out, how they're going to deal with the very fast changing landscape of federal environmental laws, because a lot of them are being watered down, if not fully disemboweled right now. And so it would be a shame to come and learn a bunch of outdated information. So I'm just curious how everyone plans to keep staying on top of all of that.
That is such a great question. Such a great question. And I was actually going to just answer a different question, but it relates to your question. The other question we get is, should I be going into this field right now? Like, what's happening out there? So I'll answer your question first, and then that sort of bigger question. We have never seen as many changes coming so quickly, right? So for the first several years of the program, no problem. There'd be, maybe a Supreme Court case or maybe an EPA ruling, and we could just update the modules. So our faculty have really had to stay nimble, which is harder to do, right, if you've pre-recorded your lectures. So almost all of our classes got updated recently to reflect some really profound changes. For example, the whole concept of agency deference. You may have heard, or there's a doctrine called the Chevron doctrine, where agencies get deference. That was tossed by the Supreme Court, which kind of puts administrative law in a different place. So everybody has updated with those kinds of big, profound changes. And in the event that there's been a change, then what we do is we have a Zoom session. So that keeps the material current. So if a module that was recorded, a while ago is no longer relevant for this landscape that we live in today, we will either toss that module or use it and then say, we're having a live Zoom session Friday at whatever time, because I really need to update you on some things that have happened since then. And for those who can't attend live, we'll record it. So they do a really good job. It's a great question, Allison. They do a really good job of keeping things current, because we don't want to send you into the world with the old stuff. The bigger question, which is, what is the landscape out there? What is the future of this field? It feels different, obviously, than it felt last year. And so, yes, the landscape is definitely shifting. Some things that we took for granted that would remain bedrock pillars of environmental law are certainly shifting. But good news, neutral news, bad news is lawyers and advocates are needed more than ever. We hear all the time from our students, I feel like this is the time, right? Regardless of politics, by the way, I feel like this is the time for me to get in there. I've been thinking about this, or I've been working in this field. Now is the time for me to be an advocate, whether that's the policy realm or the actual practice of law realm. Statutes themselves have not been tossed out. That may happen. But enforcement and violations of the laws are still important. So we at least have the scaffolding is still there. Priorities and funding have shifted. So that's something we have to kind of navigate. The really interesting thing too is um, while the federal government is going in one direction with regard to environmental law and policy, states are filling the void. So a lot of environmental practice is at the state and local level. And so if your dream job has always been to work for a federal environmental agency, that might not happen in the short term. There's obviously a hiring freeze right now that hopefully will change, but do not despair because states are hiring environmental advocates, again, MSL and LLM. Cities, counties, and states still have very, strict environmental obligations. And so state practice and local practice is becoming very large. Not in every state, to be completely transparent, right? It's each of the 50 states feels differently about environmental regulation. But there's still a lot of work and a lot of policy. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of legislators who want environmental advisors to help them navigate this new landscape. We're seeing kind of new jobs are coming out of this time. So you may have to be a little more flexible about your career plans and where you might have seen yourself going. But there's still a lot. There's still a lot to do. So we get inspired from all of you who are like, I'm going in, I'm gonna do this. Um, so and we have JD students who really are inspirational as well. So yeah, it's interesting times for sure, for sure. Other questions? And Tess, did we get to everybody's in the chat here?
We covered
Oh,
we covered it a little bit, but Anna asked about what types of jobs we see
excellent,
students
excellent.
doing.
So just big overview. We have more information on our web pages that list the various kinds of jobs that our master students have. Doesn't list every single one of them, but a pretty good list. And we feature profiles of many of those master students. So be sure and take a look there and get some details. But our MSL grads, it's really interesting because we were so used to getting JD's lawyer jobs and LLM's, law and policy jobs. And the MSLs, the world is your oyster, right? You're not going into the practice of law necessarily, but the world is your oyster is also a very broad range. So our master's students, they've done really interesting things with their degree. For example, they have become legal liaisons within government offices. So they're not practicing law, but they know enough of the structure of the law that they can serve as a liaison between the legal office and the people doing the actual on the ground work. Many of them have worked in agencies that need to review all the environmental documents for technical accuracy. So that's a thing. Several of them work for NGOs. We've got some working for local watershed councils, others working in the renewable energy field. Those jobs range from being the associate executive director of an NGO to helping to run a campaign for the Sierra Club, for example. Because the background in the law helps with your critical skills and communication. And that is a really wonderful skill to bring, to an NGO. We have MSL grads who work in sustainability offices in the private sector, a growing field. And we have many that work for governors' offices, state legislatures. I mean, it ranges, really. It's been pretty incredible, wouldn't you say, Tess, the jobs that the MSLs are getting? Did I miss any that you would
Yeah.
highlight, Tess? Jobs?
No, I think you covered most of them. I mean, it is really it's amazing to see how many variety of jobs our MSLs and our LLM students get after graduation.
Yeah, and in terms of geographic location, they're also all over the country. You may have a particular geographic area that you're wanting to stay in, or if you're doing a real career pivot, you might be open to where you might go, and obviously that helps a lot. It also helps. Sorry, LLMs. So lawyers have to take a bar, right, to be practicing law in a state. So as lawyers, we're a little bit limited in how we can hop around the country. That's changing with coalitions of states joining together. But MSL students don't have that restriction. So you can work wherever you want without having to be licensed necessarily. So some flexibilities on either side for sure.
And I
Any
think we
other
just
questions?
had one more question come in the chat from Natalie, and she asked about how often we have practicing attorneys join our LLM ranks.
Oh, that's a great question. Um, a lot actually. We have we have I would say the last couple of years, we've had quite a significant number of practicing attorneys who are either doing something completely different. We had a wonderful LLM student who just graduated. He has a criminal practice in California. And he just really wanted to learn about environmental law. There's environmental crimes that he could kind of mix into his practice. So he wasn't planning on completely pivoting, but wanted to add that element. Um, we have people in law firms who want to enhance their environmental law specialty. So actually quite a lot of practicing attorneys. Yeah, yeah. In fact, that's more common, I would say, lately than people coming straight out of JD. I think it's because the online program offers that flexibility. Yeah. Well, I think we are out of time. I'm just making sure we haven't missed any of your wonderful questions. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And if you have questions, as Tess has mentioned, please reach out. We'd love to hear about your individual goals. Happy to chat further about whether these programs are a good match for you. And we also love just hearing from other environmental enthusiasts. So reach out at any time. And thank you very much. And for those of you listening to the recording, we appreciate your listening as well. Thanks, everybody.